It's that time of the year. Let's talk about 10 carnivore diet myths. Welcome back to my channel. I am Sylvia and I'm a carnivore diet coach. For those of you new to my channel, I used carnivore diet to reverse rheumatoid arthritis about 5 years ago. I stayed on different versions of the carnivore diet. I also became a carnivore diet coach, helping other people to achieve optimal health. So watch till the end because I have a lot of useful information for you. Okay, let's start with myth number one. You have to eat organ meats to be successful with a carnivore diet. And the short answer is no, you don't have to eat organ meats to be successful with a carnivore diet. In fact, I know a lot of people that are on the carnivore diet and only eat muscle meats. So a lot of people that go on the carnivore diet and promote it will tell you that this is the most natural way of eating and this is how we evolved. And guess what? I agree. And following that principle, if you grown up on the ranch like I did, and your father slaughtered a cow, mostly of what you would be eating is the muscle meats because this is the largest portion of the animal. So it's the meat, it's the bones, it's the skin and the joint tissue, and then relatively small percentage of the entire animal are its organ meats. So the liver, the heart, the kidneys, the tripe, and the intestines, and you would eat it in that order. You would start with blood and organ meats first, and then for a few months to come, you would be eating the bones and the muscle meats. Also, it's easier to preserve them for the longer period of time if there's no modern refrigeration. And the another argument for not having to eat organ meat to be successful on the carnivore diet is the account of the Arctic explorer von Stephenson. And I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his first name. He is known for spending extensive amount of time with the Inuit people and eating their diet, which was mostly raw meat and fish, and very little of organ meats. Organ meats were mostly given to the dogs, children, and elderly. And by the way, when I was growing up behind the Iron Curtain in rural Poland, that was the way we were eating organ meats as well. If you were sick, if you were elderly, and if you were a child, you were given organ meats, but it wasn't this part of the standard everyday diet for the adults. Myth number two, you need to supplement with fiber because carnivore diet is devoid of fiber. You couldn't be more wrong than this. Fiber is not essential to our diet. In fact, it's not even a nutrient. You really don't need it. Try the carnivore diet for a few weeks and you'll see that if you suffer from idiopathic constipation, removing of all fiber will actually reverse it. In fact, the most healing aspects of the carnivore diet come from the fact that you don't eat fiber, because fiber for many people cause more problems than benefits. So no, don't supplement with fiber if you're going on the carnivore diet. Myth number three, you have to exercise when you go on the carnivore diet. And the short answer is no, you don't. In fact, if you are dealing with a chronic disease, your joints are achy, you can hardly move, you have taken tons of medication that makes you sick and weak and fatigued, and then you go on the carnivore diet and try to exercise, you're going to have a really hard time with sticking with the diet. So prioritize what's more important. You can fix your health with the carnivore diet, and the exercise, obviously helpful, obviously healthy, can come later. Myth number four, you have to supplement while on the carnivore diet. Do not supplement on the carnivore diet, especially if you've gone on the carnivore diet to reverse leaky gut or normalize your gut permeability. As you might know from my other videos, I'm a strong advocate of autoimmunity starting in our guts and nowhere else, and you have to reverse gut permeability in order to reverse autoimmunity. So if this is your goal in mind and that's why you're on the carnivore diet, the first thing you should stop doing is to supplement. And I kid you not, some people will take 10 to 20, 30 supplements a day. It's gotta go if you want to be successful with a carnivore diet for reducing of gut permeability. And by the way, to convince people to stop supplementing while being on a carnivore diet is probably one of the hardest tasks I have as a carnivore diet coach. The belief in supplementation is so widespread and so ingrained in people that they think I'm trying to harm them by asking them, don't supplement if you want to fix your gut. And if you want to learn more about why supplements are not helpful if you're trying to reinstate normal gut permeability, check my other videos about it. I made tons of videos as to why supplements don't work on increased gut permeability. Myth number 5, you need probiotics, prebiotics because you no longer eat fiber on the carnivore diet and your gut microbiome will be different. But what's wrong with that? It's a good thing when you have a microbiome die-off that was dependent on the carbohydrates, fibers, and other processed foods. Yes, you will experience gut microbiome die-off, but guess what? With the consumption in meat and animal saturated fats, there will be new gut microbiome that will develop that will be just as efficient at creating of butyrate as fermentation of fiber is. So you don't need to help the process with taking of probiotics because your body will figure out its way to make its new gut microbiome that will be very functional and will help you to be healthy. And myth number 6, fruit is okay on the carnivore diet. Fruit is a plant, comes from plant kingdom, it's a carbohydrate. It does not belong with a carnivore diet. If you're eating all meat and adding some fruits, that too is a healthy diet, but it's no longer carnivore. That said, I have come across a lot of people that until they introduce some fruit and maybe some starchy carbohydrates, they could not get rid of cramps. It did not matter how much salt they added to their diet, how many electrolytes they were drinking, until they started having some dietary carbohydrates, they were suffering from cramps. And that's okay. If that's you and you have to have some fruit, it doesn't mean your diet isn't healthy. It's just what your body wants and needs. Don't get religious about it. Do what your body calls you to do. And if you feel better by introducing some fruit, then that's okay. And myth number 7, all animal foods are good on the carnivore diet. And while it is correct that all animal foods are allowed on the carnivore diet, not all of them are beneficial to your health, especially if you are dealing with chronic disease and you need to reverse it with a carnivore diet. There are a lot of foods that are carnivore, but they will give you issues if you try to eat them. Almost always, the biggest troublemaker is milk and dairy. So many people have hard time tolerating dairy and milk, even though it is a fully carnivore food, but also eggs, shellfish, chicken, and conventionally raised pork. So yes, I have coach cases where the only possible diet that was working to reverse chronic disease was red meat, animal fats, salt, and water. And that worked and works in almost every case. And the myth number 8, you have to eat grass-fed, grass-finished meat or else things are not going to work out for you. Not true. In my case and in the cases of many of my clients, we could not tell a difference between eating conventional beef versus organic, grass-fed, grass-finished. Now, I'm sure everybody will agree that if you can afford and have access to grass-fed, grass-finished meat, you should go for it. But don't let the access to grass-fed, grass-finished beef stop you from pursuing of carnivore diet. You will have good results with conventionally raised beef as well. Where I do notice a difference between organic, natural diet fed animals versus conventionally raised is when it comes to pork, chicken, and fish. Myth number 9, once going carnivore, you have to stay carnivore forever. And that simply isn't true. Isn't true for majority of the people. If you stay on the carnivore diet long enough, and I'm talking a year or maybe 2 years sometimes, you will be able to introduce some other foods. Most likely it will be fruit and some root vegetables. If you have history of autoimmunity, things like dairy or grains, gluten or no gluten may be off limits for you forever. However, if you went on a carnivore diet to lose weight or you were dealing with diseases deriving from metabolic syndrome, then you have a lot more flexibility when it comes to introducing of other foods. A lot of people can switch to the conventional ketogenic diet with time or low carb diet, or even introduce things like leafy greens or even nuts to their diet and not gain the weight back and not have issues with their guts. From my experience, though, and the experiences of my clients, once you get well on the carnivore diet, you generally make the choice to stay on the carnivore diet or maybe just stick to carnivore-ish with like maybe 5% of non-animal foods, but generally people love being on a carnivore diet. And lastly, myth number 10, you need to drink a lot more water because you no longer eat those juicy fruits and vegetables. Not true. If you listen to your body, you will in fact need less and not more water if you go carnivore. That's because you don't need all that water to metabolize carbohydrates. And also, if you eat a lot of animal saturated fats, the breaking down of those animal saturated fats, atomic bonds, releases the metabolic water. So you will be producing your own water, and your demand for exogenous water will decrease. Now, you may feel extra thirsty during the transition period when you're first starting with a carnivore diet, but after that, if you listen to your body, you will drink a lot less and not more. All right, so this will do it for this week's video. What do you think about these myths? Do they fit with what you've experienced on the carnivore diet? Do you have anything else to add? Put it in the comment section. And if you haven't yet subscribed, hit that notification bell, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.